Lieutenant Sarah Chen watched the twin suns of Cathara Prime sink below the jagged horizon, painting the alien landscape in shades of orange and purple. Her assignment was simple enough: conduct geological surveys of the outer territories while the main research team studied the indigenous species at base camp. Simple, routine, boring. She had been alone for 3 weeks now, and the solitude was starting to wear on her. She set her collection kit down near a cluster of crystalline formations and removed her helmet, letting the cool evening air touch her face. The atmosphere was breathable, rich in oxygen, and carried the sweet scent of something like cinnamon mixed with ozone. Regulations said to keep the helmet on, but regulations were written by people who had never spent 3 weeks talking to rocks. That was when she heard it. A soft chittering sound, almost like a purr mixed with clicking insects. Sarah froze. She had reviewed all the fauna reports before landing. The dominant predator species in this region was the Catharan razorback, a 6-legged creature with scales harder than titanium and claws that could shred through ship plating. Adults stood nearly 3 meters tall and weighed close to 400 kilograms. They were territorial, aggressive, and according to every xenobiologist who had studied them, completely untamable. The chittering came again, closer this time. Sarah's hand moved slowly toward her helmet, resting on the ground beside her. Her pulse rifle was strapped to her back, but she had no desire to use it. First contact protocols were clear: avoid unnecessary harm to indigenous life. Besides, if this was an adult razorback, a pulse rifle would only make it angry. A small head poked out from behind a boulder, no larger than a house cat. Silver-blue scales caught the dying sunlight, and 6 amber eyes blinked at her in careful assessment. The creature was a juvenile, maybe only a few months old. Its claws were still soft and translucent, and its scales had not yet developed the razor-sharp edges that gave its species their name. Sarah let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. A cub. Just a cub. The little razorback crept forward, its body low to the ground in a stalking posture. It watched her with the intensity of a predator, even at this young age. Every movement was calculated, testing. Sarah remained perfectly still, barely breathing. She had read enough about animal behavior to know that running would trigger a chase response. And even a juvenile could probably outrun her over short distances. The cub approached her helmet with cautious interest. It sniffed the clear faceplate, tapped it once with a small paw, then jumped back as if expecting retaliation. When nothing happened, it crept forward again and nudged the helmet with its snout. Sarah watched, fascinated. The creature was exhibiting classic play behavior, testing objects in its environment, learning through interaction. It reminded her of the videos she had seen of Earth predators, wolf pups and lion cubs, learning to hunt through games with their siblings. The cub grabbed the helmet's edge strap in its small jaws and pulled. The helmet shifted slightly. The creature's eyes widened with what Sarah could only interpret as delight. It pulled harder, dragging the helmet a few centimeters across the rocky ground. A soft maternal instinct stirred in Sarah's chest, unexpected and powerful. This little creature was alone, just like her. Where was its mother? Its pack? Razorbacks typically traveled in small family groups. For a cub to be wandering alone was unusual and probably dangerous. The juvenile managed to lift the helmet off the ground, its neck straining with the effort. The helmet was nearly as large as the cub itself. It took 2 wobbling steps backward, clearly proud of its accomplishment, then lost its balance and tumbled over, the helmet landing on top of it with a soft thud. Sarah could not help but smile. The cub wriggled out from under the helmet, shook itself off, and tried again. This time it grabbed the helmet from a different angle, lifting it higher. It began backing away, pulling the helmet with it. Sarah knew she should take the helmet back. It contained expensive sensor equipment, communication gear, and life support systems. Without it, She would have to return to base camp earlier than planned. Her mission would be incomplete. But as she watched the small predator struggle with its prize, determination evident in every movement of its small body, she made a decision that would have horrified her superiors. She let it keep going. The cub pulled the helmet another meter, then another. It was heading toward a cluster of rocks, probably where it had been hiding. Sarah stood slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. The cub paused, watching her with those 6 amber eyes, the helmet still gripped in its jaws, its small body tensed, ready to run or fight if necessary. Sarah took a deliberate step backward, away from the cub. Then another. She raised her hand slowly, showing she was no threat. The universal gesture might mean nothing to an alien predator, but her body language would. Every predator understood retreat. The cub's tension eased slightly. It adjusted its grip on the helmet and continued dragging it toward the rocks. Sarah kept backing away, maintaining distance. She watched as the juvenile disappeared into a crevice between 2 large boulders, her helmet clutched triumphantly in its jaws. For a long moment, Sarah stood in the fading light, contemplating what she had just done. She had given away critical equipment to an alien predator cub. She had violated protocols. She had compromised her own safety. And she had absolutely no regrets. Because she understood something in that moment that no amount of scientific study could have taught her. The Catharan Razorbacks were not just mindless killing machines. They were intelligent, curious, playful. They learned through interaction. They experienced joy. Sarah activated her wrist communicator and called base camp. Commander Torres answered immediately, his holographic face appearing above her wrist. Chen, status report. You're late checking in. Sir, I need to report an equipment loss. My helmet was taken by a juvenile Razorback. There was a long pause. Taken? Did you engage the creature? Negative, sir. I observed it from a safe distance. The juvenile displayed play behavior and claimed the helmet as a toy. I deemed it safer to allow the interaction than to potentially provoke an attack. Another pause. Sarah could almost hear Torres trying to decide if she was insane or brilliant. You let an alien predator walk away with your helmet. Yes, sir. And you're reporting this as a tactical decision rather than negligence. Yes, sir. I believe it may provide valuable behavioral data. The cub will likely take the helmet to its den. If we can track it, we might locate a Razorback nesting site. The xenobiology team has been trying to find one for months. She could hear the shift in Torres's tone. Scientific discovery trumped lost equipment every time in the research community. The helmet has a tracking beacon. Yes, sir. Standard equipment. Chen, return to base camp immediately. We'll track that beacon at first light and see where your new friend took it. If this actually leads us to a nesting site, I'll overlook the protocol violation. If not, you're filling out incident reports for a month. Understood, sir. Sarah began the long walk back to base camp as the last light faded from the sky. Above her, the stars emerged, unfamiliar constellations in an alien sky. She thought about the cub, probably curled up somewhere safe with its strange new treasure. She thought about its mother, likely out hunting, who would return to find her offspring proudly displaying a piece of human technology. What would the adult Razorback make of the helmet? Would she recognize it as a tool from the strange 2-legged creatures that had invaded her territory? Would she destroy it, or would curiosity win out as it had with her cub? 3 days later, Sarah stood with the xenobiology team at the entrance to a cave system they had never known existed. The helmet's beacon had led them here, deep into territory marked as too dangerous for exploration. Inside, they could hear the chittering and clicking of multiple Razorbacks, a whole family group. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the head xenobiologist, stared at Sarah with something approaching awe. Do you understand what you've done? This is unprecedented. We'll be able to study their social structures, their child-rearing practices, everything. Sarah watched the cave entrance, hoping for a glimpse of the small cub that had started all this. I just let a baby play with a toy, Doctor. You showed restraint, empathy, and tactical thinking in a first contact situation with a potentially lethal predator species. That's exactly what separates humans from the other species in the coalition. We don't just see threats or resources. We see individuals. As if summoned by the conversation, the small cub emerged from the cave entrance, followed by a massive adult female. The mother was every bit as terrifying as the reports had suggested, all muscle and armored scales and razor-sharp edges. But she moved with careful deliberation, positioning herself between the humans and her offspring. The cub chittered excitedly, recognizing Sarah. It bounded forward a few steps before its mother's tail swept out, gently but firmly blocking its path. The adult razorback's 6 eyes fixed on Sarah, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Then the mother dipped her massive head once, a gesture that looked remarkably like a nod of acknowledgement. She turned and herded her cub back into the cave, leaving the humans in stunned silence. Dr. Tanaka whispered, "She remembered you. She knows you let her baby keep the helmet." Sarah smiled, thinking of the tiny predator dragging away its prize, of the trust built in a single moment of understanding. Humans have always been good at making friends in strange places, Doctor, even when those friends have 6 legs and claws like knives. That night, Sarah filed her official report. She described the encounter in clinical terms, focusing on the behavioral observations and the successful location of the nesting site. But she left out the most important part, the thing she would carry with her for the rest of her career. She had seen recognition in the adult razorback's eyes, not just animal awareness, but understanding, intelligence, respect, and she knew with absolute certainty that humanity's greatest strength had never been their weapons or their technology or their stubborn refusal to give up. It was their ability to see a frightened predator cub playing with a stolen helmet and recognize a universal truth, that all creatures, no matter how alien, understood the language of kindness. The Catharan razorbacks would never be fully domesticated. They were too wild, too fierce, too perfect in their natural form. But the researchers established a cautious relationship with that family group, built on the foundation of one human who had chosen compassion over protocol. And sometimes, late in the evening, Sarah would find small gifts left outside her research tent. Interesting rocks, colorful feathers from prey birds, once even a perfectly preserved fossil. She never saw who left them, but she always knew. The cub had learned something that day too, that sometimes the greatest victories are not won through strength or speed, but through the connections we make and the trust we build. And that sometimes letting someone win is the most human thing you can do.